With Sunday Night Heat airing on its new home, the show remained business as usual with the undercard talent from Raw. But a change in WWE's monthly pay-per-view schedule starting in the summer would cause a change to the special monthly pre-show episodes. Exempting the Big Four pay-per-views, Raw and SmackDown would now have brand-exclusive events that would alternate every month, starting with Bad Blood in June for the Red brand, while Vengeance would be SmackDown's first pay-per-view in July. This meant that prior to the Raw pay-per-views, the Coach and Al Snow would cover the event in detail on Heat, with JR and The King calling the pre-show match to follow. While Taz and Cole would return to and make occasional appearances on Heat to go down the card and call the action before the Blue Brand's major event got underway. Heat would have an unofficial change in management around this time, as Steven Richards, with Victoria by his side, took it upon himself to be the authority of the show, going as far as to name the program Stevie Night Heat, and even putting it on the back of his tights. Big Stevie Cool would bring in names for matches, fire random people backstage for daring to disagree with him, and promoted Al Snow to getting Stevie Night Heat exclusive interviews. The supposed general manager had to deal with Goldust questioning his authority and poking fun at him and Victoria at every opportunity. But after suspending Goldust for a week, Stevie would face the Bizarre One in the main event on August 3rd. In spite of Victoria interrupting a Shattered Dreams attempt in the corner, Dustin would hit the curtain call on his boss for the pinfall win. Stevie talked more in detail on Cafe de Rene as to how the storyline was received and handled backstage.
It's actually one of my favorite things that ever happened in my career that people don't know about, because like urban legend, like you said, I heard that they didn't even know. It used to be when you were on Sunday Night Heat, everybody treated it like it was a chore. They would go out there with, some people would have boo-boo faces on when they would go out and have a Sunday Night Heat match. So I knew that I needed, since I was always on Heat, I needed to do something different. So why not act like I actually wanted to be there and act like I thought I bought the show, act like I was the GM, act like Coach and Al were my employees. And we even did angles where I would get mad at people like Goldust for being insubordinate employees to me on Stevie Night Heat. The thing that people don't know is that the production people, Coach, Al Snow, the guys like Spike and you and Sylvan and everybody was in on the supposed rib that it was underground. We were producing the show and vignettes, backstage promos, making matches. They weren't even having matches. We would just, and if they made the match, we would make an angle, do a promo or some kind of angle off it, and they would run with it. And then Coach and Al would secretly get these production guys to get in on it. They would throw the pre-tapes up. We would have all this stuff that Stephanie, Johnny Ace, Vince, anybody in Power, JR when he was there at the time, nobody knew this was going on until 7 months into it. 7 months. I'm not even, wrestlers lie and all that stuff. I'm not even, I might be 8 months. I might be understating it. Wow. And the way they found out was, by the way, I'm walking around with tights that say Stevie Night Heat on them with the Heat logo. Richie and Magic is making a Stevie Night Heat championship based on the Winged Eagle belt. I'm making a belt where I will defend it and Spike will just beat me for it right off the bat on Stevie Night Heat. But Victoria and myself were afraid. We didn't have a lot of money with Heat. So we actually baked them pies. And I had a chef hat on and an apron that said Kiss the GM. Victoria had store-bought supermarket pies, but we were telling them we baked them ourselves. And this is when Johnny Ace walked in and thought it was great. He kind of knew. Stephanie walked in and said, Johnny, when did Stevie become the GM of Heat? And he goes, oh, Stephanie, I had no idea about any of it. No, Stevie, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, pure the pure Johnny Ace. Yeah. Right under the bus, which I loved actually for that situation. And then they came back to me after they stopped and took me off TV. 2 months later, Stephanie goes, we have a great idea. We're going to make you the GM of Sunday Night Heat, and we're going to call it Stevie Night Heat. And I said, you know what? That's a great idea. And maybe fights. Just in case you came up with this idea, like I was so sarcastic, and she thought I was like just being so grateful.
Right.
But that sounds about accurate for the environment, right, Renee?
That dude, you hit the nail on the head. So for the fans who wonder what it's like, he just that to a T. That's yeah.
It's funny. It's so you just have to laugh at it. You have to roll with it. And then, someday you'll be on a podcast 10, 15 years from now, and everybody will be laughing about it. It's all good.
It's all, yeah.
The July 13th episode would have a unique main event, as Maven would get a non-title match against the World Heavyweight Champion Triple H in the game's last ever appearance on Sunday Night Heat. After telling the former Tough Enough winner to savor the moment while he could, Hunter uses his experience early on to take down Maven while mocking him in the process. Maven is able to fight back with a hip toss and a few drop kicks that send the leader of Evolution out to the floor. Triple H returns the favor and throws Maven to the outside, but gets his face slammed onto the ring steps just as Heat goes to commercial. The former Hardcore Champion gets a near fall off a neckbreaker, as he then gets knocked down with a spinebuster off the ropes. The Cerebral Assassin chokes Maven out in the corner and stops him from mounting a comeback with the Harley Race knee. Triple H continues to dominate with his signature offense, including the knee drop, but isn't able to keep Maven down for 3. The rookie is able to knock down the future Chief Content Officer with a flying forearm, a backdrop, and a spinning wheel kick, but only gets a 2. Hunter grabs the big gold belt for a weapon, but gets caught off. And after shoving Charles Robinson away, Maven hits him with the world title, almost getting an upset win with the follow-up cover. As El Snow cheers Maven on at the commentary table, both men trade sleeper holds, with the game using his ring awareness to move his foot onto the bottom rope. Right before Maven dives off the top, Hunter shoves Lil Nate into the ropes, cutting off the future Simon System endorser. But Maven is able to fight back and hit a middle rope bulldog for another close near fall. He then hits the diving crossbody, but Triple H rolls over to escape. And Maven makes the mistake of going for another backdrop, as the game nails a pedigree to get the win in his last ever match on Raw's B-Show. Maven was also involved in a matchup on the November 23rd Heat against future CZW World Champion Masada. He talked about this match on his YouTube channel, going into the details of what happened during the bout and the discussion that occurred after the match.
Going into this match, I knew nothing about him, and I had never seen him wrestle. I had never worked with him at all. I do remember how easy he was to work with and to put the match together backstage. And you'll see where we would have our issue, and I don't think he meant to do what you're about to see, but it still happened nonetheless. What happened there and what you kind of missed. After the neck breaker, we go down and the spot would easily call for a quick cover. 1, maybe at 2, kick out. What Masada did was he, a la Chris Jericho, went for the cover with putting his foot over top of my chest. No way, no how. Now, I don't think he was doing it in any way to make himself look better than me, but that's still how it came across. And the moment he put his foot on me, I immediately smack it off, and I immediately I no-sell his neck breaker, and I jump up and just took control of the match. You see me in the corner throwing fists. I wasn't stiff with those fists. I wasn't hitting him. I wasn't trying to hurt him in any way. I was just trying to let him know that there is absolutely no way I could stand for him covering me that way. Why did I do that? Because in my head I was imagining Arn Anderson asking me why I would let someone not named Chris Jericho put his foot over top of me. In our business, that's a very derogatory way to cover somebody. If it was Jericho, happened, no problem. But as someone who is not signed by the company, as someone who was trying to get a job, wasn't going to happen. I could not let that stand for it. And that's why I didn't. That's why I jumped up and immediately went on the attack. He's got the hold on and he's leaning down. As he's doing that, I'm explaining, I'm telling him what we're about to do. The ref is in close enough earshot. He can hear everything, and actually he's probably telling us to go home. Go home simply means finish the match. In the match, start the process of getting to a 1, 2, 3. As soon as I get to the top of the ramp and I peek the curtain open and I walk through, standing right there is Arn Anderson and Gerald Briscoe, and both of them immediately told me I did the right thing. They said, Maves, there's no way that as a name guy you can let someone who's just trying out make you in essence look stupid, make you in essence look lesser than. Both of them, congratulated me, told me I did the right thing, and again, I immediately was relieved. I was so happy. But after that, my next step was to find Masada and to, just explain myself, explain what happened. And I remember when as soon as I saw him, he was a little bit, shaken and didn't understand. But once I told him and once I explained my position, and actually Arn, I think, was there with me. Once I explained it, then he understood, and he knew it was just a mistake. He was wrestling his normal match. Nothing he was trying to do. Again, he wasn't, no malicious intent. He just got carried up, and I completely understand. I know he's actually still wrestling to this day, and I wish him nothing but the best moving forward.
The WrestleMania episodes of Heat prior to 20 and 21 remained somewhat similar to those that aired previously on MTV, with running down the card as well as showcasing the media events that took place to further promote the biggest show of the year. But the biggest change was that these episodes didn't emanate from the venue, nor did it have any live matches within the hour, as the co-hosts would tour around the city where Mania was held while covering everything that would happen. 2004 had the coach and Al Snow standing at Times Square, the former home of WWF New York and Sunday Night Heat, to discuss the show, while Josh Matthews and Rue DeBona, the host of SmackDown's syndicated recap show Afterburn, toured around Madison Square Park before heading to MSG in a horse carriage as the pay-per-view got underway. 2005 had the coach and Taz going to different spots in downtown Los Angeles, preparing for WrestleMania to go Hollywood at the Staples Center. Heat's general manager would bring in a big name for the show, as Stevie Richards faced off against Chris Jericho in 2 different encounters on Sunday nights. First on September 5th, Y2J took control in the early going before Stevie would get to the ropes and avoid the walls of Jericho. Coming back from the break, the former BWO member kept Jericho grounded with several submissions, but mocking the first ever Undisputed Champion allowed Chris to make his comeback. Stevie got the knees up to avoid a lion salt, but only got a near fall after hitting his DDT. The Heat GM's middle rope dropkick would get caught straight into the walls, leading to an eventual submission victory for Jericho. The two would face off again on November 21st, starting off much like before, with Y2J staying one step ahead of Stevie Richards. Big Stevie Cool would escape a walls attempt, but ducked to avoid Chris hitting the triangle dropkick in the corner. A case of deja vu occurs, with Stevie attempting to keep Jericho grounded and cutting him off with a suplex neckbreaker, but only getting a 2 count. His overconfidence in mocking the middle rope attack allows Jericho to get a second wind, as the former Lionheart tells Mr. Richards,
"Come on, ass clown!" Oh! Now that's not very nice. That's not a very nice thing to call somebody.
but Stevie once again blocks the lion sub with his knees and gets a near fall off the spinebuster. Chris would stop an attempted Stevie kick, knock him down, and lock in the walls to get the Sunday Night Boss to tap out for the second time. Sunday Night Heat would start 2005 with an appearance from the Nature Boy Ric Flair as he faced show regular Val Venis. As he starts working on Nature's arm, Val is able to keep the pace with a back body drop and a body slam that causes Flair to retaliate to ringside. And after a chase back to the ring, Rick suckers Venis in with an eye poke and his signature chops in the corner, following up with a snapmare and a knee drop to the face. Some more chops caused the film star to go down briefly before getting his comeback underway. Throwing a few punches in one corner and hitting forearms on the opposite side messed Nate up enough to lead to his familiar face flop. But Val going back to the well with corner punches allows Rick to hit a chop block on his way down, easily letting Flair lock in the figure 4 in the middle of the ring. Trying to fight through the pain, Venis would submit, giving the 16-time world champion a win to close out that week's episode of Heat. The Big Valbowski would go into the May 15th Heat to face major Ring of Honor star CM Punk in singles action. Some quick back and forth sequences impressed Val enough to shake Punk's hand mere moments into the match. But as he turned his back, the future ECW champion chop-blocked Venis to gain the advantage. Punk continues to work on his left leg and knee, but Val gets back up to deliver some chops in the corner. Punk is able to slip out and continues targeting the knee, with the Chicago native taking a moment to mock his opponent. After kicking him away, Val gets the momentum back on his side while trying to fight through the pain before hitting a sit-out powerbomb for a near fall. Attempting the fisherman suplex gives Punk the chance to work the leg and apply more pressure with the Boston Crab, but the former Chief Morley is able to crawl to the rope, send Punk down with a half Nelson slam, and nail the money shot to get the pinfall over the man who would go on to hold the WWE Championship for 434 days. The former RTC member would once again face another future WWE and AEW World Champion in Jon Moxley. This featured Mox with his strawberry-dyed hair, a detail that was also acknowledged by Todd Grisham on commentary. Much like the match with Punk, Val Venis would defeat the young Moxley despite John staying aggressive at every given chance, with this being one of the earliest showings of the future Shield member to WWE fans. In the build-up to ECW's One Night Stand pay-per-view, Maven, as a member of Eric Bischoff's Crusaders, would issue an open challenge on the June 5th Heat to a quote, extreme wrestler of the promotion's past. It would be answered by former Impact player Lance Storm, competing on the show for the first time in over a year. Both men trade some technical exchanges before Storm hits Maven with a delayed suplex. Maven pokes his eyes to gain the advantage and knock down the leader of Team Canada, as he targets the back with a few forearm shots and a suplex for a near fall. Lance starts his comeback, but misses a running crossbody, launching himself to the floor. As Maven looks to use his weight belt, he gets stopped by referee Jack Doan, while behind his back, Storm hits a chair into the Tough Enough winner's throat and follows up with a springboard crossbody to get the victory in his home country. The build-up to One Night Stand got even hotter, as the Sunday Night Heat prior to the event, dubbed Extreme Heat, took place in the lobby of the Hammerstein Ballroom. Michael Cole and the coach, with hired security by his side, discussed what led to the one-night revival. As Coachman continuously enticed the rabid and cult-like fans, in between recaps of ECW invading Raw and SmackDown, as well as different segments from the rise and fall of ECW DVD. Heat would go through another big change heading into the fall season, as with WWE moving Monday Night Raw back to the USA Network, both of the company's B-shows would no longer air on Spike. But instead of carrying the programs into their weekend time slots on USA, it was instead decided to air both of them digitally on WWE.com. With Velocity now on Saturday mornings, and Heat airing regular episodes on Friday afternoons. The show would still take place prior to the pay-per-views until 2006, with the episode before Backlash being the final time Heat would ever air live on Sunday nights. In the midst of Rob Conway disrespecting WWE legends, the former tag team champion would have to face Hall of Famer Greg the Hammer Valentine on the October 21st Heat. Conway would throw some punches at the opening bell, but it only fires up Valentine as he hits some vicious chest slaps before throwing Rob to the outside. The Hammer continues going after the chest, but he gets pulled out of the ring and thrown across the floor by Rob, though he likely meant to hit the ring post face first. A few elbows and punches allows the former member of La Resistance to keep Greg grounded shortly, but Valentine quickly gets back up to hit some elbows to the head, outsmart Conway to avoid a dropkick, and land a headbutt to the midsection. Rob pushes Greg out of a figure 4 attempt into the corner, and shows some ruthless aggression to the Hall of Famer, before Eugene runs in to interfere and give Conway the DQ victory. The Hammer shows his annoyance by shoving Eugene to the ground, leaving Eric Bischoff's nephew upset and distraught in the ring. The Hurricane would be no more towards the end of 2005, as Gregory Helms looked to send a message on the December 16th edition of Heat, when he took on Tajiri in what would be the Japanese buzzsaw's last match of his first WWE run. Both men trade some holds before Yoshihiro uses his speed and experience to knock Helms down and kick his back. The former Sugar Shane then has to pull Tajiri's hair to sway momentum in his favor. As Tajiri reverses an attack in the corner and attempts to lock in the tarantula, he gets dumped to the floor, with Gregory continuing his grounded attacks back in the ring. The former tag team champion reverses another running attack in the corner and attempts to lock Helms in the tarantula again, but gets stopped. Tajiri is quickly able to bounce back and hit a super kick that starts his comeback, ending with a handspring elbow for a 2 count. Helms attempts to hit a tornado DDT in the corner, but gets reversed and allows Tajiri to finally lock in the tarantula. The former Cruiserweight champion dodges an incoming kick and hits the Shiny Wizard to get the win against his former rival on Heat, as the Japanese buzzsaw gets to say his goodbye to the WWE fans in attendance before returning home.
This is my last match in WWE. I go back to Japan, but I really enjoyed last 5 years. Thank you for you guys. Thank you for ECW. Thank you for WWE. Thank you for USA. Goodbye.
I've known Tajiri since he started here in the States. He became a cult favorite in ECW and a worldwide international WWE superstar. And I'm proud to see and call my friend's last match here in WWE. Tajiri, thank you for all your efforts here. Thank you for spitting the mist in the coach's eyes. And thank you for being yourself. Take care, man.
He still owes me for dry cleaning, by the way.
Long past the days of running Heat alongside Stevie Richards, Victoria would consistently be featured in the show's women's matches throughout 2005 and 2006. While she did face the likes of Trish, Stacy, and Molly Holly, the future Tara would also have encounters with names that would be a part of different promotions over the next few years. First defeating Talia in the opening match on July 11th, Talia would later become a part of the TNA Knockouts division as Velvet Sky. Victoria would also face Melissa Anderson on May 26, 2006. This also serving as a tryout for well-known indie wrestler Cheerleader Melissa while she was training and taking part of company workouts with Ivory, Molly, and Jazz. The show 3 weeks later would feature Victoria hitting the Widow's Peak on Mercedes Martinez, many years before Mercedes would bounce between WWE, AEW, and Impact Wrestling. Charlie Haas re-emerged on the Raw brand in the spring of '06, but would soon become a staple in the later years of Heat. While competing against other lower card talent, the former WWE Tag Team Champion would also take on a few familiar names that would become mainstays of the roster within the next few years. He would get the win over former Velocity regular Akio on May 5th in a very hard-hitting opener, with this also being a tryout match that led to Akio getting re-signed to WWE and later being repackaged as Jimmy Wang Yang. November 24th featured Haas defeating Fred Sampson via the Haas of Pain, with Fred going on to be future primetime player Darren Young and a future strong openweight champion in New Japan. On the first heat of 2008, Haas would issue an open challenge to anyone who could try to out-wrestle him. It would be answered by newcomer Drew McIntyre, being able to stay one step ahead of Haas for the first few minutes, but would be in for quite a surprise after sending Charlie to the outside. Haas would crawl halfway under the ring apron, presumably taking a breather from the offense of McIntyre, but got back on his feet, now donning a mask that acted as a source of strength, allowing him to regain momentum as well as channel some high-flying offense into his moveset, or at least attempt to. Drew reversed a suplex attempt, taking the mask off in the process, and got the victory with a Northern Lights suplex. As bizarre as this match became, it was also a showcase for the Scottish superstar that would soon become the Chosen One in WWE and fulfill his prophecy several years later. And this wasn't a one-off trick against McIntyre, as Charlie Haas would continue to rely on his mask anytime he competed on the show. At any point, Haas would get knocked down, roll out to ringside, crawl underneath the ring, and emerge with the mask that either helped him get the win, or if it was taken off, would end up costing him. An unlikely duo would form a new tag team on Heat in the later half of 2007, as ECW alumni Super Crazy and Hacksaw Jim Duggan faced off against some of the more established tag teams on Raw. In October, they would lose to Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch, but got a victory over the world's greatest tag team in London the week after. But the two would soon get into a series of matches against Robbie and Rory McAllister. The Highlanders often got the win in their encounters towards the tail end of the year, but would fall to Super Loco and the first ever Royal Rumble winner on January 18, 2008. He would reach a major milestone on February 29th, with that week's airing being the 500th episode of the show. Jim Duggan celebrated the occasion by defeating Jason Riggs in the only singles match on this episode, before getting attacked by Katie Lee and Paul Burchill afterwards. Jillian Hall then sang a song dedicated to Heat.
Josh, will you please shove something in her mouth?
The only words that I understood in that whole thing were Mean Street Posse.
And the main event saw Brian Kendrick, Val Venis, and Super Crazy getting the victory over Snitsky, Charlie Haas, and Robbie McAllister in a 6-man tag match. As Heat emanated from the O2 in London for the final time, the April 18th show would be main evented with Val Venis' last ever WWE match against Snitsky. The UK fans tell Gene to brush his teeth after the bell rings, while Val tries to take the big man down and attack from the middle rope, but Snitsky catches him and starts unleashing his own flurry of attacks. Continuing with a few grounded elbow drops that transitioned into a headlock, Val fights his way out, but appealing to the crowd becomes his biggest mistake, as Gene hits the big boot and the pump handle slam to send the Big Valbowski packing from his decade-long WWE career. Super Crazy would be the next roster member to deal with brother and sister Burchill in a Tornado handicap match on May 16th. With it becoming clear that Crazy's attacks on one partner would constantly get stopped by the other. Paul would lock in a bow and arrow submission, allowing the future Winter to hit a double stomp onto the midsection. The pair continue the onslaught until Super Crazy avoids a corner attack, and tries to roll up Katie Lee, only to get booted soon after. Crazy then kicks Paul after being whipped into the corner, and sends Katie to the apron, only to get a 2 with the crucifix pin on the former Pirate. The combat gets going after hitting a Bulldog Hurricane Rana takedown on the 2, but gets stopped after trying to nail it again later, as the former Mexicool barely kicks out of a powerbomb from Katie. Super Crazy's fate gets sealed with a neckbreaker and a curb stomp from Paul, as Katie Lee gets the pin and their dedicated victory to William Regal. Heat the following week was main evented with Kendrick in London facing the World Tag Team Champions Cody Rhodes and Hardcore Holly in a non-title match. As Holly and London start the match, Paul hits a few quick arm drags onto Sparky Plug before tagging in Kendrick, with the Bryan nailing a head scissors takedown. Bob then decides to tag in the younger Rhodes brother, as Cody goes for a hip toss and a grounded headlock. Kendrick is able to get Cody into the opposite corner, as he and London trade some quick tags to work the arm of the future Legacy member. A double hip toss leads to Paul trapping the arm before using his quickness to avoid an attack from Cody. With Rhodes practicing his Stardust cartwheel before getting dropkicked by London. The Hooligans take down the tag team champs as we go to break, but return to see Holly knocking down London as he's now fed up with the Cruiserweight's antics. The Big Shot lays in some heavy offense before tagging Cody back in, as the dashing one decides to return the favor and work on London's left arm. While Spanky reaches out for the tag, Cody kicks the midsection and attempts the running Bulldog, but London's ring awareness helps him get his partner back in. After Kendrick fights back like a house of fire, Rhodes is able to stop the sliced bread attempt, as Holly and London run in for the save, but end up brawling on the outside. Cody hits a rebound power slam, only for Kendrick to roll through for a small package and get the surprise victory over Raw's tag team champions, as both teams show respect to each other after the bell. This one gave Bryan and Paul a title match on Raw the following week, where they would come up short against Rhodes and Holly. But soon, neither team would get to face off again on Heat, or frankly anyone else on the lower card, as the decision was made to put an end to one of WWE's longest running programs of that era. The final episode of WWE Heat aired on May 30th, 2008. Starting off with Snitsky defeating Super Crazy, Santino avoiding the 3-point stance clothesline and rolling up Hacksaw for the win, Lance Case squashing Jeff McAllister, no relation to the Highlanders, and in the last ever in the show's history, Charlie Haas defeated Robbie McAllister via the usual assistance from his mask, with that being the final image of the 513 episode run of Sunday Night Heat. Heat would be replaced in its international time slots with Vintage Collection, a program hosted by Mean Gene Okerlund that aired classic matches from the company's tape library and was often tied to a theme, a certain superstar, major events, or a special occasion, and could cover several weeks' worth of episodes. When most people think of Sunday Night Heat, they often think of its early years, continuing the chaotic action from Raw, while also providing the show with its own memorable moments, debuts, and matches that are still talked about to this day. And as the WWE continued to evolve into different eras and storylines with many faces coming and going from the show, most Sunday nights on USA, MTV, or wherever it aired could still bring something unique that you'd likely miss out on if you only watched Raw and SmackDown. And while Heat has mostly been considered a B show or even a lower tier for the majority of its run, hopefully this retrospective has shown that even the weekly programs with less importance can still have something that's worth going out of your way to check out, especially since most of it's unlikely to be added onto Peacock or the network anytime soon. And while I've covered some of the highlights throughout the show's history, Sunday Night Heat is worth another viewing or a first time watch, no matter when and where you decide to start.